Today we're talking about the importance of a sharp knife. A knife is a versatile tool when you're out in the wilderness, and it's an important tool. It serves many features from hunting, gathering, and it allows you the opportunity to cut wood, make rope, and even fish. You can do all sorts of things with a knife, but the most important aspect of a knife is a good sharp edge. So there are a couple different ways that we can sharpen a knife. We have the whetstone, which I soak ahead of time because it needs time for the water to absorb into the pores of the stone. That way when you are putting water on it, it doesn't soak into the stone. It gives you more time, allowing you to not have to put so much water on it as you're sharpening. Also, if you see here, there is a traditional knife sharpener that you can buy at a store. And now with those traditional knife sharpeners, you take your blade, you stick it in there, in between these two metal prongs, and you pull. And as you pull, that puts a nice perfect edge on your blade. Now if your blade is really dull, I suggest you start there, or if you're just not comfortable with whetstone, then you move forward here first. Whetstones are much easier to use than they appear. The neat thing about a whetstone is the edge you get from a whetstone is much stronger and much more razor-like than what you can get from just a traditional knife sharpener from the store. Now, using your whetstone is key. Get a nice firm place on the ground. I like to sit when I do mine. Some people like to stand. Either way though, I prefer that it's close so that I can see the angle of the knife on the sharpener. Now, when you position your knife on the stone, I like to look for a couple things. One, I like to look at the angle that the blade is at. Each blade is sharpened a little differently, so you might get a different angle. And if paying attention to that will actually help you understand and keep from sharpening or having to remove more metal to create a new angle. So when I put it on the stone, it's nice and wet, as you can see the water splash. I like to put it so that there's almost like a fingertip length between my finger, or between the stone and the blade. And then as I push down as I go this way, and then I lift. Push down and lift. It's constant push down, lift. And then you just move down the blade. Now stay on this one side for a while. I like to check it every little bit to make sure that it doesn't have any burrs along the knife edge. This one is a very clean knife edge, so it's not going to take a lot of work. But then when you come back this direction for the other side, you find that same angle, and I like to use the edge of my thumb at about that same distance, and I push down as I pull towards myself and lift. Lift, 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 lift. That way, you're not cutting against the blade as it's where it's cutting. This helps you pull the blade out nicely and give it a nice sharp edge. So the movement is very smooth. You can kind of focus on different parts of the blade. When you go to use the tip, that's always a tricky part. You want to kind of lift the blade up and kind of go at it from this direction and give it a nice little push. You want to make sure the curve of the blade is nice and sharp, because that can do a lot of your cutting for you. And most people tend to use the tip of their blade more than the base. Now that your blade is sharpened, a really neat test to see how well you've done. This is a good test. I've done two things. One, you can take your blade and see if you can shave your arm, and see I have nice hair right there. I've shaved my own arm. So that means it's got a nice razor sharp edge, and it didn't leave any pain there. But also, you just take it against a piece of paper, and that was a bad cut. And you just kind of see how it slices. And if it slices good, then you have done a good job sharpening your blade. That nice clean cut means that you've got a nice thin edge that is super sharp. And that's how you sharpen a blade using a whetstone. I much prefer a whetstone because with that this sharpener here, you really don't get the same edge and the same razor-like consistency of that blade, and it's much superior. It does take a little practice. I have dulled many blades when I was learning how to do this, but it is an extremely useful tool to have, because this right here is actually what they call a survival kit, part of a survivor kit, and it just folds up nicely. It's easy to pack in your bag. There are multiple variations of these, and some of them have up to 4,000 grit, and they can get really, really fine edges. This is not that. This is just meant so you can live with a nice sharp blade. Thank you for listening, and thank you for learning with me. Having this ability is a really neat tool to have at your disposal when you're in the wild, because it keeps that knife sharp edge, which keeps your survival skills even sharper. We'll see you later.